Welcome back to the channel. It's not the same channel as it used to be. The name's changed, you can probably notice. But this was Entry Level Motorsport. Came to the decision that I thought I'd best change the name. There's a lot more going on now that isn't just about motorsport, so I thought I'd join them into one sort of channel. I'll explain. So some of you guys knew what I used to do for a living. I used to be a Snap-on franchisee. Yes, some work doing that. Cut a long story short, promises were made and not fulfilled, so I decided to pull the plug on that and told them to do it themselves, which they're not doing, but hey, by the by. So this is now my job. Not YouTube, but here. This place is now my job. So this channel is now me, Tom Upton, and it is also about the stuff that happens in this particular workshop. So this is now Stop and Weld Workshops. This is the Stop and Weld HQ. I'm going to call it Stop and Weld HQ. There's a picture of the outside. I would do it now, but it's dark. You can see there as well, there's a sign that says Powerflow Exhaust, so that's correct. This is the home of Powerflow North Devon, so this is the whole of North Devon. This is the only authorised Powerflow centre in North Devon, and that is what I'm doing going forward from now on. I've been doing it for the last sort of 4 months, so I think the last video I put up on the channel was 6 months ago, which is way too long, and I apologise. I'm going to drag some of the Stop and Weld videos over and remove that channel and put it all into this channel. So you'll see videos purely about fabrication and technical parts of welding and stuff like that. Just little clips that I put up now and again, and they'll also, I'll throw in there all the stuff to do with the trialing. So you now get like full view of what's going around in the workshop and the sort of size of the place. It's a reasonable, decent sized unit. It is a old World War II aircraft hangar, so half of it. That's why it's sort of like an arch shape at the roof, and that's why we've got gorgeous wooden trusses up there rather than steel ones. Very, very nice. It's also awesome because the floor is incredibly thin and awful, but hey, room for improvement. So 6 months is a very long time to not put a video up, so I'll try and give you a really short sort of rundown as to what's been going on in that time. I think the last video I put up, we were talking about changing the front and rear suspension on the Class 8 Trials car, which was that one over there. Some of you will recognise this one. It used to be red in some of the older videos, and this is how it looks now, still with mud on. So yeah, so the plan was to change some of the suspension, and we were on about changing the front suspension and then also changing again the rear suspension. Obviously, previously we've modified the Beetle trailing arms to take air shocks, like nitrogen filled shocks that do everything in one go. So torsion bar delete and all that sort of thing. Those are all videos that we've done before. We have come away from the Beetle trailing arms completely, which is something I said I would do. I did film ages ago footage of the creation of those arms and what it was involved in doing that, so I will put that footage in as well and you can watch that. So if you're wondering why my clothes change or the workshop, things move around in the workshop, that's because it's footage from probably 4 or 5 months ago. I'm waiting on some laser cutting to come back, but basically here is an MX-5 hub shaft, and here is some cardboard that I made. That's never going to stay up straight, is it now? Just because I'm filming. Right, so let's take it apart a minute. So cardboard aided design is key to all of this sort of stuff. Just stay there, will you? Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. Stay. Right. I've tried to do this so that I only have to draw it once. I've already drawn it, but I'm just explaining to you the concept. So the idea is I only have to draw it once and then get it cut twice, and then I flip the actual whole piece, because obviously they're sided. Each side is opposite to each other. So that's the plan. So conveniently, so the idea is I don't want to cut an MX-5 hub about at all. If I need a new hub, it's just a case of just find a new hub. So I want to adapt this hub to my own trailing arms. Here's my disc. That slides over that. It does, trust me, there you go, it goes over. And the idea of that design is that you can then, if you want to pull the hub and the half shaft out, or the drive shaft even, half shaft, drive shaft, you know what I mean. You don't have to take the trailing arms off. or I don't have to have like a cutout for the actual dry shaft to be removed from. So, and I'll explain why it said circle in a bit as well. So that goes over there, and it comes down, and that's upside down. Okay, so I got the laser level out because basically, and I measured the height difference between the two pins. There's only 2 pins on a MX5 hub, like a big bolt there goes through, and then a slightly smaller one. So I think that's 14mm, and that's a 10mm at the top there. So they're different heights. So obviously I want this to sit parallel to the disc. Does that make sense? Just so it's nice and easy to work with. So I got the laser level out, and then I basically measured the difference between the two, and then I've got like individual pear-shaped things here. Try and slot them together, show you guys what it looks like completed. Give me drill. Basically, it's going to look like that, but out of metal. And the idea is, any mishaps in my design are taken up by the fact that there's like 2 slots, so it doesn't really matter where exactly it sits. Once it's in, it'll then get welded up solid, both sides. And the idea of the disc is that obviously I'm coming, so on the, I'll try and show you on the car. Well, I'll show you on this car because it kind of makes the same thing. So you've got a pickup here and a rose joint, and then you've got a flat plate. I don't know if you can see it, it's fucking dark in it. So you've got a pickup point, a rose joint, and a flat bolt plate. And then there'll be tubes coming off that, and those tubes will land on this area. So you've got quite a decent amount of space to try and land the tubes somewhere. You also then have the inner. So you've got an outer, which is where your torsion bar plate would normally be on a Beetle. You've then got your inner, because it's a IRS. And that tube needs to come and land somewhere. I haven't really worked it out yet. Then you also need to then pick up off the shock. So the air shock needs to land. So I've drawn it so it's kind of on the computer. So it's kind of the actual like U-shaped piece that the air shock will fit into, kind of floating in midair. And then once I've got it in the right position on the car, I'm just going to tube up to like 2 or 3 pieces of inch CDS tubing to take the weight of the car. So imagine the cardboard stuff, but made out of 6mm mild steel. Let's go have a look. Cool, so that was easy. I did mess up a little bit. So basically this is everything's in a pair. So this disc is identical to that disc, and there's 4 of these like pear-shaped things, and they're basically just an exact reproduction of the cardboard one. So there's a cardboard one. I've kind of roughly drawn it on CAD to fit. The only thing I didn't do, I'd left the hole off one, which meant I got now 2 with no hole in, but that's fine. I can just chuck them in the pillar drill and drill a hole through them both at the same time so that they match. So the reason behind being identical is method to the madness, trust me. So that way round is near side or offside or whatever. If you flip it over, it then becomes the opposite side of the car. So you can, on one CAD drawing, I don't have to draw 2 lots of stuff and have them sided. I can draw them once, and then you just rotate them when you're putting the pairs in and welding it together, so you have 2 out of 1 drawing. Basically it's laziness. I'm trying to be lazy by drawing it once and then just having to flip it when I weld it. So laziness is key. So let's take all this and like put it on there and see if it actually works. Oh, first thing to do, hang on. So let's see if my pattern like actually worked out as enough clearance. Oh, look at that. Rather than taking the trailing arm off, you can just pull the whole hub and shaft straight through if you need to remove it, which is very nice. So yeah, what was I doing? Put that on there. Cool, let's do it. There we go. There we have it. It kind of makes sense how it kind of goes together. You've got a bit of play, you can move it up and down to get it ready for welding. I've got to just drill the hole in this plate because obviously I left it off the drawing because I was super smooth. So do you know what, it would probably take the same amount of time to drill a 14mm hole through these as it did for the laser at CNC Fab Works to cut all of these pieces out. That's how disappointing that is. So there she is, all attached and looking like a thing. I think I'm just going to tack it together for now, and then we'll start stripping parts off the car. Okay, so this is the side of the car all stripped down. There is some bits we need to change to fit everything. So this is tiny compared to the MX-5 drive shaft flange that needs to go on there. So the horn has to be cut out here. This is like the original Beetle horn. To take an adapter plate, which I haven't yet made, which will adapt it from the Volkswagen straight to the MX-5, pretty much the same as what I've done over here. So that's Audi to MX-5. You can see the 4 MX-5 pickups there. So basically it's got to be the Volkswagen one on the Beetle is tiny, so it's like this big in this inside the circle, so I've got to make a new adapter plate. I've also got to work out what size this shaft is here, because I've got to come off there with a rose joint. I haven't really decided how, because obviously that's another tube that's got to come to meet the hub. There's a couple of bits that need to be bought, so I've got to buy a rose joint for there. Right, so rose joint for there. The PCD adapters, obviously we want to keep the same wheels as we've all been using, which are Beetle wheels, so then they can be changed to the front, and we carry 2 spares that will fit front and rear, etc. So we need to come from MX-5 to Beetle, or whichever way around it is, which is fine because it's 4 stud to 4 stud. So all they are, I think there's like a 25mm piece of alley that you just bolt onto the Beetle pattern, no, the MX-5 pattern, and then it's threaded for the Beetle wheels to just go straight on. So that's nice. That's a nice easy thing. Just buy them off the shelf. I think pair is about 100 quid. So I've got to buy them, got to buy a rose joint, and then need to just mock everything up and hang it in the air. So everything else I haven't really thought about is bump stop. Obviously this is a bump stop that I've added on here to run on the Beetle suspension. Originally these were cut off before we changed to air shocks, but they've been added back on. I don't know if the new arms are going to even meet that, so I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to cross that bridge when I got the arms in and on and done. So yeah, also need to work out how to adapt Beetle handbrake onto an MX-5 hub, whether that's even possible. I have absolutely no idea. Again, cross that bridge when I get to it. Also need to make up brake lines going to the MX-5 caliper. So yeah, it's not as straightforward as you'd have thought, but it's expected. So I think that's it for tonight. So I'll jump back when I have some more parts. Laters. And we're back. Right, so many things have been completed. Let's have a little look. My torch on. So let me try and work around here. So the hub adapter things we've put together, and it's all tacked at the moment, but that's obviously MX-5 hub onto an adapter. The adapters for the Beetle to MX-5 things, they've been made and just tacked together. You can see there I've taken the horn out to clear it. I'll show you the other side in a minute. This side I welded it up, so there's a load of bar been shoved in the hole and welded up so it's nice and strong again. So that's that part done. The inner, I was talking about the inner rose joint thing, it was 22mm in case anyone wants to know. I've used the original bolt and I made up an aluminium boss to go on the inside there, just to push the rose joint to the outside. So it just uses a standard bolt just in the standard hole with a giant 22mm rose joint. What else have we done? So we are also string lining to try and get this right. So I'll show you the front of my string line, my temporary string line kit. So it's an extendable pole, cable tied onto the front. string. Obviously the car doesn't have a body as such, so I'll just kind of explain to you how I make it work. In the centre of a Beetle, you've got the grub screw for the torsion bar. I've got no bloody torch again, hang on. Keeping it down. That grub screw hole there is the centre of the car. So I'm using that as a datum to do the front. So what I do is measure the string out so it's the same either side. So then it's equal, so the front end's equal. I then take the measurement from one string to the other, so the whole width of the string, and then I make that the same on the back. So from this point to the other point there is the same distance as the front. So does that make sense? And then to get the back square left and right, I don't really have a datum. Like, this is all added on at some point. So what I did was, when there was no wheels on, I measured from the actual, from the face of the gearbox output to the string, and then I halved it up, so to make sure. So basically, if it was 72 centimeters, I made sure that this side, if this side was 73, I made sure to move this whole aluminium rod across to halve it up and make sure it's equal. So that's how I got the actual car square. And then once that's square, you can then get a rule when the wheel's on, and you can measure to the string, front of the wheel, back of the wheel, etc. to square it up. Obviously we do have some movement. I want to get it rough as best I can, because I've got a rose joint this side, a rose joint that side, so I can take them off and wind them, and that will either bring the toe of the wheel at the front in, or the back in, or I can move it, you know, pretty much anywhere by using those threads and winding them back out. So we're a couple mil out either side, which is fine. We have a huge amount of travel compared to previously. I mean, you can kind of see, like, that's pretty much going to be ride height. So we've got a massive amount of travel. If you can kind of just see, the wheel is no longer in the middle of the arch. I moved it towards the rear by about 25 mil, which was an option we had, just because that angle then to the rear, we're having problems with the rear overhang hitting the floor. So that angle then, obviously the further the wheel comes back, the better the angle is. So yeah, so the wheel's a little bit further back. We obviously have to change the arches because they don't cover the tyre anymore. So we've got the PCD adapters. So there's your PCD adapter. The only thing I'm missing is this thing here. So this is hang on. This is what the air shock mounts to. So this is a piece I've turned down on the lathe just to space it out. It's the same as that. Does that make sense? Same as that air shock diameter there. So I've got to mount that somewhere in here, and then once that's mounted, so I'm just going to hover it there a minute, grab my torch. So once it's kind of mounted there-ish, there'll be a tube that will come from that tube up to the top of that, and that will stop the forces to like twisting in and out force. So yeah, gonna crack on with that and see you in a bit. Okay, so another quick update. More welding has been done. Let's have a little look. And so you can see this is the completed arm. So you can see I've put that extra tube in there to go to the top. These are like the triangle things there, are little gussets that every time I put a laser cut job in, I like add little extra bits onto like the waste material. So there's like a circle cut out the middle or something, I'll put some triangles in there and little gussets and whatever, just to take up the material, and they become quite useful. So that's there's one of them on either side. The shock mounts to that, limit strap to that. This is fully compressed, so you can see there's like, so you still get your the angle of the wheel still, hang on, let me put that down. The angle of the wheel as it goes up, it goes in that angle. So we've still because we're using the standard Beetle pickup point areas, we still maintain that geometry, which is nice. So the bottom end, I've got a metal tube on there because this is the standard MX5 lower arm bolt, which is way too long. So I've just used, because I haven't got any M14 bolts, I'm just using a bit of tube just to pin it all together and hold it tight for mock-up and that. Bolts are on their way. So all savaged it with the MIG. I did have to cut this like plate out there, a gap, because once I'd added the bottom tube here, I couldn't get the CV through that hole, so I had to cut the frame there just to allow the CV to remove, and then I put a bolt plate in there just to keep a bit of strength. That makes sense. So that's one side, and then the other side, I've still got the string line kit on, as you can see, just to try and make sure the geometry is right as I'm working on it. So this is the bolt plate, so you can kind of understand. So the inner with the little Allen key bolts, that's the Volkswagen size. This is just tacked together at the moment, but that's the MX-5 side around the outside there, the 4 bolts. That's the notched out. I forgot to finish notching this and filling the horn in, but that's what it looks like. And then the MX-5 CV fits over that. So these hex bolts, they can never wind out because it's got the MX-5 flange touching them pretty much, which is nice. So this is what it looks like before it gets welded up. So there's the other one for the other side. You can see what I mean. I'll stand this up. Oh. So there's the mounting point for the that piece of tube in there is turned down the lathe just to keep it square and tight. So yeah, we give this a tack with the MIG now. Let's go. That was warm. So that's the second one fully welded up. Not my finest work, but we're ain't getting paid for this. There we go. So that's fairly strong. It's I had to kind of waz it in there. It's 6mm plate. I don't know how thick the tube is actually. I'm gonna go find out. Oh, here's a piece. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. It's 4.5mm. Yeah, 4.5mm. So it's a fairly decent wall thickness. So yeah, 4.5mm. That is CDS tubing as well, so that's seamless stuff. That's proper nice stuff for this sort of thing. So yeah, there's a few gaps where it's obviously I don't want to cut tube a million times to get it all right. So just fill it up. It should be stronger, definitely stronger than what Volkswagen put on their standard, which is just a pressed sheet steel arm. Yeah, it should be a lot stronger than that. So I like to do all the welding as soon as I get down here, and then I can give it half an hour to make sure I've not set any fires without knowing. So I'm gonna carry on and basically just cut this little bit of horn out here, and then I'll bend up a piece of flat plate, like a 5mm piece, 5mm thick, sorry, to go in that, kind of like what I did on the other side. Welding's pretty much all done apart from the horn and the little adapter from the gearbox flange. So yeah, that's pretty much it for now. Probably check back in with you when I'm doing the horn. Or not, I don't really know. So not only did we build rear trailing arms, custom ones, we also did the front suspension as well. So we did torsion bar delete on the front. Here's a load of footage from that as well. So look, it looks like it's all back together and stuff. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll put it on the floor and I'll show you what I'm talking about. 2 secs. Obviously, no wheel arches on the front, but that's the new front beam on. Torsion bars fully removed, replaced with the little like roller thingies, and just running on the like coilover things. It doesn't look terrible until you do this to the front of the car. So yeah, I've done a really good job if I want it to be as low as physically possible. Yeah, it's not brilliant. But I kind of figured that would be a thing, so I wanted to try it, see what it was like. And the plan is now to put one lot of torsion bars back in. Join me while I try and mess around with very, very old German technology. Okay, so that's the like little trailing arm things taken off, and now I've exposed what would normally be a torsion bar and is actually like a rod with little swivel things on the end. I'm going to explain the trouble I had with them in just a second. Join me over at yonder well-lit bench. So these like torsion bar delete bar thingies, I'll just show you if you didn't see in the last video. So the torsion bar on a Beetle, or torsion bars, looks like these. So like torsion bar leaves, and there's like a divot when you squash these to get, I don't want to touch it because it's covered in crap. When you squash them together, there's a little divot, and on the car there's a big grub screw that holds. So basically a torsion bar stops the trailing arms from falling off, so they're like an integral part. So you can't just remove them, you have to stop the bars from, otherwise your wheels will fall off basically. To replace that and not have anything that does a springy thing, you have this, and I don't know if you can see that spin in there. Oh look, there's grease on it like everything else in my life. So that spins either end in place of the torsion bar. Lime Bug. So Lime Bug is where I ordered them from. Failed to mention on their website that they were for a shortened or narrowed beam. Amazing. Obviously we've gone to put them in the car and they just disappear inside the beam, and obviously I want solutions, not problems. So rather than ringing up and whinging and whatnot, the decision was made to do a cut and shut. This is a piece of 1-inch CDS roll cage tubing, so it's got no seam in the center of the tube, and conveniently the inner diameter is exactly 20mm. Chucked it in the lathe, tidied the ends of it up, and then TIG welded round either side. This is just solid mild steel bar, and that's a piece of CDS tubing. So there's a gap in there of, however, I assume it's a 2-inch narrow, so it's about 2 inches, to make this longer, so you can only put it in from one side, and this just floats inside the tube, and the trailing arm comes up to kind of about here-ish, roughly. So that solved that little problem. You Volkswagen people out there will be laughing at me because there's probably some incredibly easy way of trying to get this pack of leaves through the square hole that's in there. I haven't worked it out yet, so I'm just going to struggle. Oh, there's only one left. Oh, I fucked it right up now, haven't I? Fuck. Oh, come on. Oh, my hatred for this is palpable. Attempt number 4182. Oh. Fucking dude on YouTube just slid it straight in. Motherfucker. Fucking hell. Oh, I hate this so much. Ah, that's such a shit idea. Fuck. Oh. Yes. Fuck you. Ah. Fuck me. Never again. Never again. Okay, that's more real work than I've done in a while. So I pulled the tube out, the like spinny tube, torsion bars gone in. So whenever I ask you to just slide the torsion bars back in, just judo chop them directly in the neck. Don't do anything else, just straight away. Because that is just disgusting. So yeah, it's all back together. So you can see in the end there, you've got your spindly tube thing, and then in this one we've got torsion bar pack. So now seeing a video of me sort of messing around with the front suspension, I'll just go over exactly what was done and the stage it's at the moment, which is, I think, a finished stage. So at the front here, both torsion bars have been removed. The top one doesn't have a torsion bar in. This one has like the rod that I showed you with the like swivel ends on. I did do both, changed both, and hoped that these would give some spring. Turns out that was terrible. So this one has the rod in. The bottom one has like standard torsion bars in, but it has this adjuster on the center there. I did put that in, tack that in, and then tried to see where the suspension sat, and it was still too low. So what I basically did was I got a very longer bolt to replace that one out here. I then basically put a jack under it and pre-tensioned the torsion bar, so it's got loads of sort of, not loads, but a good sort of quarter of a turn of force on it before it's then welded in. So that is in there very tight. I hope I don't break it, because if I do, I'm fairly confident it means I've got to cut that and mess around with it again, which I don't want to do. So that's the front end done. It actually works. Like before, when you went over a speed bump, the whole front of the car would go gadoosh, because the suspension was so stiff, there was absolutely no play at all. Now you go over a speed bump and the wheel actually goes up and then down. It's like almost like suspension works or something, isn't it? So I'm classing that as the front end completed. I think the old man still wants to go ahead and do the old, look at those brimbles, honestly. The old man still wants to go ahead and do a, like where you get two hubs and mount them one on top of the other. So we'll do it, I'll video it when I get there, just to give sort of like a 3-inch lift on the front. You've seen the footage of me building the trailing arms. Let's now have a look and see what they look like. So here we go. This is the big ass arms on the back of the car. So this is a standard MX-5 hub, standard MX-5 shaft. All parts you can just get, I say, off a shelf. They don't make stuff like that anymore, but from a scrapyard or your friendly neighbourhood drift wagon will probably have these in plentiful supply once he writes it off. So air shock, obviously. Running it really closed, which is good because it means we use like less nitrogen. It's not such high pressure to get it up, which is kind of nice. And you can see this sort of wibbly wobbly tube going up there. Turns out it's an absolute pain in the ass to get like the camber and the toe. I've made like zero adjustment on this end, which obviously in hindsight probably would have been a lot easier to make the adjustment. So this tube here has to have a kink in it, because really it wants to be curved, so that ball, that what's it bloody called, rose joint, that heim joint, rose joint thing at the end there, that needs to be a better angle. So probably eventually I will put a roller tube on the tube bender and have a curved tube there. I think I've got a picture of us trying to get the angles all correct. Obviously the nice thing about the way that we've done this is, like, if you raise the suspension of a car, the wheel will go drop as if it was lifting a wheel. Does that make sense? That means the geometry all changes as well. As you lift in the suspension, the geometry all changes unless you start adjusting that, which is kind of hard to change because it's kind of built into the, especially on the Beetle sort of rear end, it's built into those pickup points, and that's what I've come off of. to get the geometry right. So as the wheel goes up, it curves in at the top. So if you lift the suspension up, it kind of drops. So even though it's independent suspension and not swing axle, it will still go through that travel, which is designed to be on the road as you turn in and lean in the car over. The nice thing about building your own trailing arms and doing all the toe and the camber and all that sort of thing is you can set that to be upright at higher. So when the suspension's, higher, you can sort of set the camber and the toe so that it doesn't drive terribly, like it's lifted up all the time. Does that make sense? So that's what we've done. Lifted the suspension up, set the camber, all that sort of stuff, toe, while it's up at what is going to be the new ride height. And that seems to work quite well. It doesn't now try and kill you every 5 minutes. It only tries to kill you every half an hour, which is amazing. So a little bit more detail. You've got that plate there. Inside has got the gubbins to go onto the Beetle gearbox, so that you haven't had to modify the Beetle gearbox at all. It's just a standard Beetle gearbox. I think it's a super diff in there as well, obviously from previous. And then standard MX-5. We had huge problems. I can't remember what trial we were supposed to go on. I think it was the Clouds. Yeah, let's get the car ready, nailed, built the trailing arms, went out and tested it, went up a section, yeah, brilliant. Went up another section and punched the inner CV through the back of the drive shaft. Ugh, yeah. Basically, in my rush, I had not measured it properly. So as the suspension travels up, pushes the drive shaft through the back of the casing of the MX-5, little CV casing thing, and yeah, wrote the shaft off. We then put it all back together, spaced it out a bit more, and went out and did it again on the other side. Yay! So that's why it's been a long time, because you get a proper sad on when you go testing and it breaks, and you come back and you just have, and it just sits there for a couple of months because you're a bit sad about it. But in this configuration at the moment, I'll show you sort of what I had to do to get it to work. So I can't fucking see because it's covered in mud, look. So this is the adapter kit you can buy to change torsion bars to the shocks, and basically what I've done is turned it round so it sticks out like 50 mil. It's a big piece of 50 mil solid bar I've threaded it all the way through, so it's proper chunky bad boy. And that's just to push the front out, which meant the shaft could come out, which meant we didn't have the toe. Because if I wound that diagonal bar out, it would have pushed the wheel out further, which would have then given us the correct drive shaft length, but it would have meant, because I've got no adjustment on the actual flange here, it would have meant that you'd have just towed in the whole time. So to do that and then that, now the wheel points straight and the drive shaft length is correct. The drive shaft is also further, so the hub now is actually further to the rear of the car. So if you look, oh, I'm blind, hang on, I'll come over here. So if you look, the wheel isn't in the middle of the wheel arch anymore, it's further back. We've actually managed to get it so that during the travel of the suspension, the actual CV only goes in and out about 2 mil. So it's kind of it ellipses around the gearbox output shaft. That makes sense? So rather than it being straight in line with it, and then as the trailing arm goes up and down, the CV would move in and out, it's like 2 mil, it's barely anything. Obviously, when you're putting torque through a CV, it's gonna, and you're bouncing it up and down like you are doing off-road, that's when you can bust CVs. It's because the torque going through it as you're trying to slide it at the same time, it doesn't like it. So that could be good, I don't really know, we'll see what happens. We'd like to go test it again before the next trial. I think there is a trial in a couple of weeks, so I think we'll go for some more testing and see what we can do. So yeah, welcome to the new YouTube channel, just called Tom Upton, unless it's already taken and I have to put motorsport in the end or something, but you'll see what it says underneath. I haven't really changed it yet, so yeah, that's it. I'll give you a little walk around as well, so you can sort of see the workshop and what sort of equipment we've got now. It's got the old three-phase MIG, big one. Got a Huth SS300 or 300 SS, I think it is. So this is the exhaust bender. This is an absolute weapon. It is not cheap. This is all my money. put into a machine. So yeah, but this will do all your bends, it will do your expandy things, expanding and making your thingy bits and bending your bar and all that, all in one. It's amazing, I love it. Music, which unfortunately you guys can't appreciate it because YouTube, done by this big snap-on toolbox speaker here, which I've changed and modified. So you now slot a Makita battery in there and it's now cordless, but it is absolutely banging. The TIG now lives in its place that I said it would have lived originally, which is under the bench, and is still awesome. You've got the big ass lathe, still do big ass lathe stuff on that, which is nice. All the exhaust stuff here, so all the power flow stuff, look, all the silencers, cats, more silencers, tips, more tips, all your sort of flexies and stainless bits and bobs and mandrel bends at the bottom. So yeah, got a lot of stuff going on. I'll do some more tour in some other videos, but this is going to be a long one, so I'll try and keep it short as I can, ish. But yeah, like and subscribe, all that sort of fun stuff. I'll see you next time.